John Milton once wrote, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls," meaning that every death is important, but death is a much more frequent occurrence among the homeless. So it's even more sad when a young life full of promise and resolve ends in the shadows.
There are many reasons a person may wind up living on the street. But one thing all the homeless have in common is despair. And for some, despair is a spiral that only leads down. The ultimate destination, it's one from which you can't return. The writer George Sand once said, "We cannot tear out a single page of our life, but we can throw the whole book in the fire." That was the choice made by a young man we first met in January, Bradley Heisey. Brad was homeless. He was honest about what landed him in the street.
The main reason how I got to Amarillo was actually because one night I pretty much almost drank myself to death. I had 14, 15 shots of this moonshine that they had, then 32 Coronas on top of it. And I guess I just passed out, seized, and then I came here to the hospital to pump out my stomach and end up sending me to the pavilion because of it, because I thought, it was suicidal ideations.
He was also wise beyond his 20 years on this earth. He told us that what seems like a random series of events in your life lead you down a single path.
It's easy to think in the moment these are just random scenarios that are happening, but you don't see that these random scenarios are actually leading up to a point, They're going out, skipping school. It all starts with skipping school. Then next thing you know, you're skipping work. Next thing you know, you're skipping hanging out with your friends, or skipping, family dinner, skipping. It all starts with just one day of skipping school. Next thing you know, you're skipping everything important in life.
But when he arrived at a tent city called Christ Church Camp, he thought it offered the change he needed. He said he got sober and that he had found God.
I do believe that completely, that God was showing me that if I kept up the path that I was taking, this is where I'll end up for the rest of my life. Just going out, getting high, and then coming back to just somewhere to sleep. I don't really want that lifestyle anymore. You're young, you want to party a little bit, but I'm trying to grow up and mature myself a little bit.
He also met a young woman named Shelley.
Bradley. He was very outgoing, and he was out there. He was funny, way more extroverted, than I was. Always talking to people, just showing the purest of loves that was out there.
She told us Brad had dreams, but his collection of mental and emotional problems always threatened to derail them.
He was still struggling, yeah. He wasn't doing drugs, but he was struggling mentally, and I knew he was in trouble when he said that he didn't want to get help.
The homeless commit suicide at a rate 9 times that of the general population, 112 out of every 100,000.
We took the pills together, and we were walking around when it hit him, and I was just asking him, what happens when you die? Do you know that you die? When you die? And he's like, I don't know, I've never died before. And then we were kind of quiet for a little bit, and then he just says, "Babe, I love you." And I was like, "I love you too." And then that's when he fell out, and I went to go get help. But it didn't work out like I planned.
But it really only shifts it to others.
Because right now I feel alone. Even though I have faith in God, I feel very alone. Yeah. There's a lot of comfort that he doesn't have to suffer anymore. But then there's the other part where I had to suffer without him now.
But to the other homeless folks they knew, death is so common it barely leaves a ripple.
They were sad, but just another person gone. What they think.
Ironically, we asked both of them if they had advice for others who are wrestling with problems of booze, drugs, or mental illness.
I've seen a couple of my friends end up going to the ER. Luckily, none of them passed away, but overdosing is much easier than what you think, so you never know that whenever you say this is the last time, it might actually be the last time.
Always reach out for help. Even if you feel like it won't work, just try. That's what I gotta say.
For all of us, at one time or another, the enemy can seem too strong and our defenses too weak. But that happens far more often to the invisible.
Shelley has also resolved to change her life, now clean, working, and finding a new path for herself. She told us the memory of Bradley is an even greater incentive to leave her former life among the invisible.